Hey, what's up, everybody? Long time no see. Feels good to be back. I will be publishing a proper video in the very near future, letting you know what's up with the channel. Short version of which I'm going to start publishing content again in the very near future. Got a lot of stuff in the pipeline that I'm very excited about, all project-based. This is a repost from season 1 of the Build TV. This is from the Firehouse project. This is the deep dive video on the Ecowarm radiant floor panels that I did. I was in touch with the guys and they just asked that I pull some dated content, remove some of the irrelevant stuff that no longer applies. I was happy to do it. They also shared that they've got some new products coming out. So as those come closer to launch, we're going to be doing another video with them. So if you are interested in learning about radiant flooring, this is an awesome deep dive video to do just that. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you've been here a while, I appreciate you sticking around. I will be back very soon. Enjoy. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it.
Great.
Maybe just introduce yourselves so everybody knows who you are.
Yeah. I'm Hoyt Corbett. I'm president of our company, Warm Brothers Incorporated, that makes Ecowarm.
And I'm Morgan Muir. I run the marketing at the company. Both of us have been in the business for over 35 years. Both of us have served on the Radiant Panel Association, the association for the radiant business. Hoyt has worked in the technical realm, writing manuals, etc. I have worked more on the training aspect over the last 35 years.
Cool. So over 70 years collective experience in warm floors.
Exactly.
So Radiant's been around forever. Europe has been using it way longer than we have. Tell me, like, when you started Ecowarm, how the idea of these panels came about, and kind of why you went this direction.
I think what we were looking at is the existing group of product out there.
Okay.
The right idea is to put it on the top surface. Right idea to have aluminum, just perfect. One of the people out there were making a very thick version of it, which we didn't think made sense. And then another one was had bare plywood with the aluminum underneath, which doesn't really make
no, it doesn't really. It doesn't make sense
so
at all.
We just looked at what was there and said, I think we can really do something a little better here. And we have sort of the concept of value engineering. We think we generated good value for the buck.
The idea behind the product is it's FSC certified 3/4 inch plywood, pre-grooved. You have two types of boards. You have straights and curves.
Yep.
And then the boards are, what are the dimensions? 3 by 5?
They're actually 23.5 by 47.
23.5 by 47.
We start with a 48 by 96 piece of plywood.
Sure, so standard plywood.
On a router table, we lose the kerf as the router cuts the boards.
Gotcha.
And so that's why they're that slightly smaller dimension.
The ease of use, and by use I mean carrying it up a 3-foot wide staircase in an old 1890s building and getting it up here in a timely manner where my guys can lay out and install right away. It was easy. I mean, guys are carrying 5, 6, 7 boards at a time because there's no weight to this stuff. So, I mean, as far as maneuverability around a job site, weight, ease of cutting, ease of screwing, A++. Like, absolutely loved the install
Another
process.
feature we have, is actually part of the patent, is an undercut on here, which means that when you put the tubing in, it snaps in place.
Yep.
Which other companies didn't have, and it just makes it when you
Interesting.
pop it in, it stays there.
So I noticed it when we were, because what we did, and I don't know if this is atypical or typical for the install, but we really wanted to make sure that we got the layout right before we started fastening boards.
Sure.
So we went through from the back of the building all the way to the front on this floor and laid out the entire project. So as we were laying out, so as not to screw ourselves up, we had a whole bunch of scrap pecs that were like, 2 foot or 1 foot, and kept popping them into the seams to keep us true.
Yep.
And then once we knew we were true all the way to the front of the building, we came back and would pick up a board, liquid nails, screw, and and we were good to go.
Right.
But we noticed that the PEX, clipping in, if you will.
And that's the way to install it. I mean, we provide CAD drawings for every job for layout, so people don't have to figure that out.
Yep.
But then to actually install it, you did it. In
Yeah, I mean, I've said it
sequence.
it a few times on camera now. What you guys provide is literally a paint by number. Like the guys look. I mean, we made a few site condition changes here, which obviously changed. Like, for example, that stairwell is plywood because it was supposed to be an open stairwell all the way across. So I said, don't put heat there. It's not meant to be there anyway. We had this wall over here ran 16 inches longer, so where the 5-gang light box is. So if you look down, like, we were easily able to make a router adjustment and just kink the PEX tube around that.
Yeah.
But
and that's true on every job. I mean,
Sure.
best laid plans, you have it all working on, but on a real job, things change a little bit. Yeah.
any renovation specifically, like if you are super dialed on a ground up build, maybe you don't have a change.
So
Never gonna
Anthony,
happen.
you mentioned that you screwed all of these, which is one of the really good ways to do it.
Yep.
A lot of people use a sheathing stapler. They choose a 3/8 wide staple
Okay.
and put 2 in at each location.
So that for speed, that's got to be.
It's faster.
Yeah.
And it'll never come loose.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, as far as
Both are
speed,
good. Both are
I
good.
mean, as far as
You know.
speed, I couldn't be happier. We moved really quick. It was one day to lay out the whole floor, maybe 3/4 of a day, but call it a day. And it was a day getting everything glued and screwed.
Yeah.
I'm just super OCD about not wanting any squeaks whatsoever. So liquid nails and the Power Pro fasteners, and we were done.
Yeah.
And the nice thing with the Power Pro too, like, we didn't have to. I know you don't have to pre-drill, period, but just the way the shaft is made on the screw, it zips right in. You get a nice flush. The head is flush or just below the surface of your product. And now that we're ready for hardwood. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you too. I was talking to the plumber 2 days ago because we just finished the tubing up here. So you guys' timing is perfect for as far as a visit. But I asked him. I said, Rich, how long because this is my first go with Radiant in my own home. So I've never watched I saw my father do his, but I wasn't there for the whole thing. How long does it usually take to put the PEX down? He's like, if you're not using something like this, it's like 2 or 3 hours a room. I mean, we did my office in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Then we did the second bedroom in 10 minutes. I mean, I had to adjust the timing on the time lapse to make it interesting because we were going so damn fast. So
And that's part of what's nice about an undercut groove.
Yeah.
Because it keeps the pipe there. You don't have to worry about it coming loose, reaffixing it, etc.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is super cool.
But while we're talking about that, you have standard cross-link polyethylene PEX pipe, half-inch PEX, 0.625 OD.
What he
works,
said.
That works great.
Yeah.
There is another product that's PEX, aluminum PEX, that comes in the same dimensions.
Okay.
We do not recommend that people use it because when you push it into our undercut groove, it ovals slightly. And because of the aluminum in it, it stays oval.
Right.
It won't retain in the groove as well. And sometimes it sits proud at the top of the board.
Oh, interesting.
So that question
it's
comes
there,
up.
but it's uncommon now. It's not used that
Yeah.
often, but it is.
Well, I
something
imagine
to
aluminum
avoid.
PEX is going to be quite a bit more than
It's
Typically
standard.
more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea with you guys capping the pre-groove boards in aluminum is for the conductivity.
Exactly.
So it seems awfully redundant at that point.
Yeah, it wasn't for that. It was so that when you bent it, it would maintain its shape.
Yeah.
So, for example,
But with
in
the
a-
back cut, you basically
You don't need it.
Exactly.
interesting. Cool.
There's also on tubing, you have a particular brand, which is a really good brand.
Okay.
It's white. Very often, manufacturers will have it red. Same product.
Gotcha.
Same effectiveness. There are probably 6 or 8 major manufacturers, all of them good. But they look a little different.
Gotcha. Now, but in terms of the PEX itself, it's no different than the PEX that's used in my walls for hot and cold water pipe, or it is.
It typically has an oxygen barrier on it
Okay.
because You're trying to prevent corrosion of boilers and disparate metals in a heating system.
Okay, so it's call it maybe in layman's terms, is a little bit more robust a product than the stuff that's going on.
And it depends on the configuration of which boiler and etc.
Gotcha.
But in general terms, often it has an oxygen barrier.
Okay, good to know. So this is a question that I've been dying to ask since we did the install. How and who engineered this? Because you guys only have essentially two products. You have straights and curves. But like the curves work for an amazing amount of situations.
Right.
Exactly. It's a little puzzling when you're looking at it. And then as soon as you get an understanding for the way you do your plans and the amount you cut off of each board as you get into tighter areas, the curve, like you don't miss any nook or cranny of the heat, but you only are selling two different products.
When you first look at it, you think, oh, there's straights for going across a room,
Right.
and then there are curves for the end of the room. But if you actually start using a product, you can cut that curve, the combo sections, into all sorts of problem
crazy.
solving.
And for everybody's edification, like when you have radiant heat, you can set up a ton of different zones. So I have a 2-bed, 2.5 bath home here, and I have 9 different heating zones, so that, for example, the second bedroom that's behind this wall, if I don't have guests, that can go to 0, but my living, dining, kitchen, bar area is at the desired temperature for JC and I interacting here every day. So you get a lot of efficiencies from that as well. But I think the maybe you can talk a little bit about looping and the way that those zones are created, because even though I understood I could do zones, it wasn't until I saw the physical install go in, see that where the starting point of the pipe was and then where the ending point of the pipe was, and how kind of that all comes together.
Well, where it starts is when somebody decides, hey, we'd like to work with you.
Right.
Comes a questionnaire. And that's where we start talking about what kind of flooring goods, what kind of zonings do you envision, and it's a back and forth between the designer and us about zoning, which will imply manifold locations and number of loops, and all of that part of it is part of the discussion.
AKA, homeowner needs to do work here.
I want to clarify the difference between loops and zones.
Sure.
So a zone is an area you want controlled typically by a thermostat to have a specific heat. So houses are typically zoned by similar use, similar time of day, similar exposure. Those are things that contribute to how you decide to break up a house. Or sometimes there are significantly different floor coverings.
Okay. Tile versus carpet versus hardwood.
Yeah, though in a really well insulated project like this, that becomes less important.
Well done, Rockwell.
And so you have a zone, but within a zone, you can have multiple loops, because you want the tubing loops lengths to be less than, let's call it 250 feet length.
Okay.
So a big room
Yeah.
might have 2 or 3 loops going back to the manifold.
Gotcha.
That be controlled is one zone.
So you're going to have a minimum of 1 loop per zone,
Yeah,
but you
right.
can have multiple loops per zone based on how big that area is.
I've had 10 loops in a zone.
10 loops in a zone?
Sure.
This guy's living in a big house.
No, I didn't. I've installed it in big houses
Oh my God,
when I
that's
was
amazing.
a younger guy.
Oh God. So what else do we need to know? What else can people watching this who are interested in doing radiant are educating themselves? What else is there to know about either A, radiant in general, B, your product specifically?
Well, when you're looking at it, and particularly hydronic heating, we'll leave out electric heating.
Yeah, that's
there
a
are really
whole different.
3 major decision-making areas.
Okay.
Your heat source, your boiler, and all of that. So that's one thing you got to think about. Controls, which are really straightforward and easy now.
Yep.
And then it's how are you going to deliver it? You could put it in a concrete slab.
Yep.
On our site we discuss all of these things and the pros and cons and the history of it all.
Yep.
There are some that go under the floor, because sometimes you have existing hardwood conditions.
Yep.
You don't want to rip it up.
Gotcha.
Put it under there. It's far less efficient.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Far less response time.
Okay.
But you can do it.
Okay.
Because
within limitations of heat loss and
Sure. I mean, I understand that everything has a caveat to it, but
Yeah.
like
Right.
all things being equal,
Yeah.
kind of general
So-
conversation for.
those things will, in the beginning,
Yeah.
people will talk about that. There's also cementatious gypcrete kind of stuff that's
Yep.
about 1.5 inches thick. You put your tubing down and then pour it over.
Gotcha.
Which has its plus and minuses as well.
Okay.
And then within our group, which goes on the surface, the idea is to be near to where you're heating and lower resistance. So
Yeah.
it's going right into the flooring goods and getting out.
So it's
Low-
going directly below what your finished floor will
Lower
be.
resistance means
Yeah.
lower temperature means higher efficiency.
Great.
That's all there is to it.
And that's something that I'm really looking forward
Yeah.
to.
So we might operate at 110 degrees. Underfloor might be at 150 degrees.
So more utilities, more stress on the boiler.
The boiler won't run efficiently.
Right.
Because condensing only happens below 140. So it's like a regular old-fashioned boiler. So you're
Oh, so it's running all the. So
well-
the efficiency of radiant heat basically
Yeah.
disappears when you.
Exactly.
Well, there is what he's talking about is there are condensing boilers, which are newer generation, highly efficient. They're so efficient they condense BTUs, hence some moisture out of flue gases.
Huh.
And so typically, if you can run a radiant system at 95 to 120 degrees, you're always in the condensing mode, saving energy. And that's one of the really unique advantages of radiant floor heating. Can I say another couple of things about our background?
Sure.
I grew up in a radiant heated house. My mom was a Frank Lloyd Wright fan, and when she put an addition on our house when I was a kid, she put radiant floors in this giant family room, playroom.
And now,
And
that
bedroom.
was old school, like put the tubes in, pour the
Copper pipe,
concrete over.
Yep. And yes, it had some problems from corrosion of copper where it hit the rebar and
Oh, sure. Oh, the different
but-
metals.
But growing
Interesting.
up with it is wonderful. We crawled around on a thin little cork floor over concrete. that
Yeah.
was
Well, listen, we're we're planning on having a party where we burn our slippers once I turn this
Well,
system.
I mean, the fact of the matter is why people use radiant heat and keep using it. It's amazingly comfortable.
Yeah.
Yes, we have more efficient system, but that's not always, in the forefront of people's thinking.
Sure.
And comes along with the
Well,
party.
and look, that's the point of this series is to educate people on products I'm putting in my own house because I do a ton of research. I've got 20 years experience in this industry, and I'm constantly out there trying to find the latest, the greatest, the tried and true, and share that with people. So, I guess the best way to put it is, if you're talking about radiant heat as a category over forced hot air, no-brainer, radiant heat.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to look at within the category of radiant heat, what I have found is the Ecowarm product that you guys make is incredible. I mean, I haven't turned it on yet, so I guess that's the caveat, but having spent time with you guys, having talked to you guys, I fully expect this to perform the way I'm expecting it to. And I'm going to have my FLIR thermal imaging camera, and we're going to show everybody all that stuff. But assuming that it's going to operate the way that I know it will, this is a level of efficiency that is really unparalleled in my opinion. I mean, I not having hot and cold spots when you're stepping on and off of the actual physical water tube once it's under your finished floor,
Yeah.
having the conductivity spread out because of the aluminum, being a somewhat green product that it's FSC certified wood, and then again, as I already mentioned, having the smaller boards that are easy to maneuver on a construction site, being able to cut this stuff with a standard table saw, not having to pre-drill everything, the efficiencies of the install. Then you get to dropping the tubing right into all the pre-grooves. I mean, I would have to imagine you're obviously spending more for Ecowarm than you would be for regular plywood. But when I look at what I saved in labor because of the speed of the install and the speed of the tubing install, you got to imagine you're pretty damn close to break even.
You're also looking at wood is a pretty good insulator, actually. Aluminum is very conductive, 1,500 times more than concrete.
Huh?
So just having
plywood.
bare,
Then plywood.
I'm sorry, then having bare plywood roof.
I say the wrong thing all the time, and
I
I
do
put
too.
words on the screen and correct myself. So I'll take care of it. Don't worry.
So having bare plywood really doesn't get you very far.
Right.
Even if you think it's cheaper to do your own.
Gotcha.
Don't count your labor. It's makes more sense to.
Interesting. And then, I mean, you talk about efficiency, then you add in the reduction you're going to see, obviously, over time with your utilities. All those things adding together, you've got to be close to break even on this product as a homeowner.
But then how do you value comfort? The way we really sell these systems is they're just the most comfortable system possible.
Oh, 100%.
And I have a story for that. We had an outside cat on our porch and our dog who hated each other. And one night when it was really cold, I felt sorry for them. So I ran tubing out from my mechanical room, heated the doghouse. They moved in together. They slept together. And
No way.
we're telling the truth, we're great friends after that.
Oh my God.
So I wish I had filmed that.
That's
because-
awesome. That is awesome.
Right.
I really like that. Yeah, I mean, look, from a comfort standpoint, it's a no-brainer. The heat rises, it's under your feet, so inherently it's coming up. It's super efficient way of heating the house. 2, there's no blower. You don't hear a fan going. You don't hear anything, any noise whatsoever. And, you know, water changes temperature very slowly, so once it's up to the temperature you want, it's pretty efficient to keep it at that temperature.
So there are 2 components of radiant heat. So there's a conductive loop of warm air rising, going around and falling down to the floor across the surface of the radiant, but that's only maybe 35% of the heat. The rest of it is radiant waves. They're coming up and actually heating objects. And things around you, your body, all the objects. And so there's a concept of mean radiant temperature, which is comfort is in that circumstance more dictated by the average surface temperature of all the surfaces in the room. And with radiant heat, it turns out that's at a lower set point than a typical forced air house.
Interesting.
The reason you're uncomfortable in front of a big window is because your body is going from hot to cold. It's trying to heat that surface. So if you warm up the surfaces around you, your body doesn't have to put out all that energy to heat things
Holy
around it,
cow.
because that's the physics of actually how.
Now I know why when my parents first put Radiant in, we were having dinner with the doors open in January
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they had it set to the way they used to set their old forced hot air system.
Sure.
And we were all sweating. I think it took them like 2 or 3 weeks to figure out, well, maybe if I turn it down a little, but he would turn it down and then it didn't move, very much. So, interesting.
Like you, I have to correct a word. There's a convective loop.
Convective loop.
Right.
There we go.
So it's conducting air, which then convects around in a loop.
I'm believing you either way. So,
Anyway.
So my little radiant personal story
Sure.
was we put this in our dining room kitchen area years ago.
Okay.
15, 17 years ago.
You're your own guinea
Yep.
pigs.
Turned it on.
Yep.
And our cat was usually downstairs, and it came doing its little plodding thing up the stairs, walked in about 3 feet and froze, and then it went flop over on its side.
Oh my God.
The cats and radiant floor. If you like your cat,
Yeah.
they're gonna love. Radiant Floor.
I'm a dog guy. We have a rescue dog that everybody knows, Rossi, and I am very excited to see because he's a very curious guy. So I want to see how he feels with the heat.
Yeah.
And he's a sun seeker. I mean, anytime I come out of my office at home, if there's a sliver in the curtain open or the windows are what, he is wherever the sun is hitting him, he's laying right there. So
Be a happy dog.
he's going to be a happy dog.
Right. Good.
Absolutely.
Good.
So one other thing I think we should talk about, at least in my head as I'm looking at it, is the perforations that are in the curved boards. Because I think, for people who aren't familiar with Radiant at all, and then further not familiar with Ecowarm, I just want to explain to them why that's there and how that kind of functions.
Right. So our combo boards have multiple different channels from which you choose some of to use. So therefore, what we've done is we've manufactured the board with the grooves that you choose from, then laminated metal over the top, then run it through a roller to indent the grooves.
Okay.
And then we put it in a machine that perforates the center of every groove.
Yep.
And so then in the channels you choose to use, you walk or pound the tubing in with a mallet into those channels. And then the aluminum's left intact, spanning the channels you don't use, which helps the overall conductivity of the board. So it's just been a very cost-effective and smart way to make an effective product.
So through the paint by number plan that you guys give, the CAD drawings, you look at where the pipe is supposed to be run. Now, so what we did was I just ran a utility knife through the perforations and then just stepped it right down. It worked super easy. And then all the other perforations you just don't touch, and they're meant to stay there.
Exactly.
Simple as that. Super cool.
Earlier, when we were talking, you were talking about your past experience with radiant floor heating and your experiences, and you said a lot of things that I thought were relevant. I'm wondering if you wanted to touch on that.
You know, when it came time for this project, I was exploring a lot of different options. I really wanted my home to be as perfect as I could make it. And I say as perfect as I could make it because we all know there's always things coming out. There's always something you don't know about. But I came across your guys' website and started doing a lot of, which you guys have a ton of information on the site. So I started doing a lot of reading, and I saw a lot of the differences. And it really struck me, and that's what really made me call you guys and start to talk. You know, things don't need to be so overbuilt that they wind up being, one, cost prohibitive to the end consumer, and two, very cumbersome to use on site. So, you know, I was thinking about all these things as I was developing and designing this project, and I was like, you know, I cannot afford to have that long of an install time. But I love the concept behind metal, pre-grooved panels. Stumble on you guys with a little bit of help from the Google, and lo and behold, you know, it really everything that I was hoping for came true. So I'm excited to turn this on for the first time. I mean, we are at the end of September. We're looking like we're going to hit end of November, beginning of December for a finish date. So it couldn't be better timing for all of this. Well, I mean, if you guys have any other facts that you want to share about this, I'm all ears. As far as the questions I have, I mean, I think we've covered it.
Great.
You know, again, just to recap, the install went super fast. The CAD drawings you guys sent, all but for the changes I made, were perfect. Everything ran really without a hitch. And being that it was my first experience putting it in my own home, I could not be more excited.
One
about
thing
it.
that I'm sure you'll catch on video later on. Every job has little creative solutions attached to it, and people use a regular old router, a 5/8 bit, and can solve all sorts of little problems. Like when you approach a manifold, or where maybe I didn't quite do that right. There you go. So there's a lot of flexibility in this and creativity that can be applied.
I mean, I think that goes back to what I was saying about not having to pre-drill the boards and being able to cut the boards on a table saw. If you can cut it on a table saw, a router bit is the same circumstance. You can plunge that router in, and you can have it. You know, you can cut whatever groove you need. And just to make sure everybody at home understands, if you cut a groove in this aluminum capped plywood, just because there's no aluminum under the groove you make is not going to make this any less efficient. Number one, it's going to be a very small groove you're getting from point A to point B that doesn't match up perfectly. And the sides of that tube are hitting the top of the aluminum that's already there. So you're really only losing a little bit of the aluminum that would be in the predefined grooves.
Or is over in your manifold. You really don't want heat in that area. You'd be overheating it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see it in the bar area, under the kitchen island. Like, you guys did inspect the boards there. One, you saved me, the money. We put down standard plywood, and two, There's no need to heat your pots and pans. So,
Or your tomato sauce.
or your tomato sauce. Very true.
There are two other questions people ask us a lot.
Okay.
One is, how long will this last?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question.
And our board will last as long as plywood ever lasts.
Okay.
The tubing is stress tested in a way that they project it'll last 80 to 100 years.
Awesome. I'm covered.
Lifetime
Yeah.
of a normal structure. And then the other thing we should talk about is floor coverings.
Sure.
And big variety. Pretty much, we have details that'll handle almost every type of floor covering. So in this particular project, you're putting down herringbone.
Herringbone hardwood, 3/4 inch thick here, and then in my bathrooms it's mostly porcelain tile on the floor.
Right. Hardwood is typically nailed, traditionally
Yep.
nailed, though there's more examples of gluing it now. We have approved glues for doing that. The glues we have can actually come in contact with PEX pipe. There are glues that can eat plastic tubing,
Okay, good to know.
so it's good to use the ones we approve.
Okay. And that's in your manual.
Yes.
And that manual is available online.
And we've done tests.
We'll link to the manual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's an important aspect. A lot of people now are gluing and screwing, or I mean,
That's the
gluing
way I
and
do it.
nailing.
Oh,
Normally, if somebody's nailing hardwood floors, the straights are run perpendicular to that direction,
okay.
so that as you're nailing the wood, you can, in general, see where the tubing
So
is.
in this case, you have a straight tube. Typically, nailed hardwood would be laid out this way.
Right.
That's why we ask on our questionnaire. People say, "Why you want to know?" Oh, well, we want to know so.
We want to save you from making a bad
Yeah,
design
so you-
decision.
And one of the details we have for installing tile is putting down backer board on top of our board.
Okay.
And one of the tricks of doing that and knowing where the tubing is laying out a thick piece of clear plastic as a template with a marking pen, draw where the tubing is, and then you can roll it out and use it as a guide of where you can screw in the backer board.
Interesting.
And then typically an elastomeric membrane is put on top of that allows the tile to expand and contract separately a little bit
Oh,
from
interesting.
what's under it. So we have all those
So just to
details.
separate the substrates,
And we have a blog
basically.
on it, and you know,
And I'm from California, so elastomeric thin sets are very important for earthquake
Yeah.
cracking. So yeah, much more important than some other parts of the world.
Uh-huh.
Right.
For sure. Okay. Great.
and almost every type of laminate flooring and engineered wood flooring can be used. There are a bunch. The biggest expanding market right now are vinyl floorings.
Well,
And-
vinyl's come a long way.
It does, but there are some
Yeah.
concerns that I have about it, which are when I've looked at all the current manufacturers I've found, they say don't put it in a sunroom. It's only approved to go over a slab where the tubing's 2 inches below the concrete.
Interesting.
I think what that's saying is the stuff expands a lot when it gets warm, and we don't yet know how it's going to respond over time. So
The better quality of vinyls now have a backer. You never should use roll out.
No, absolutely.
And you can also put down thin backer board and then put
so that gives you just a
the
little bit of
vinyl,
separation between the
with
texture.
backing on it. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, but it's all I'm saying is every time there's an explosion of new technology,
Sure.
it's hard to sort out the good ones. You have to be a little bit careful.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And the same was true when the first bamboo click lock floors came in. It's a great floor for use of a radiant because it's dense, it's pretty, it's conductive. But there was some of it that was not super high quality. So it's,
I remember those when you would make the high heel marks in
Right,
the
right.
floors.
right. So you know, it's like everything. You're an experienced guy in construction.
Yep.
You love new technology, but you also are always concerned
Yeah.
about liability.
I need to say that Hoyt wrote the book on flooring goods over radiant floor heating for
Yeah.
the Industry Association.
So he knows a thing or three.
So if people have questions about it, they should talk to him.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're talking about floor coverings, the main issue is keeping the R value, meaning the insulating of the value of the floor, to a reasonable level.
Yep.
We have a chart of what those are in our manual.
And with tile, they could, if the tile guy wants to put down his mortar bed,
Yeah.
fine. then you can use that technique. If you want to do other techniques, thin set, etc.
Yep.
We have a variety of ways to go about that.
Would you do thin set directly over your product, or you'd put the backer board down first?
We would put a backer
board first.
Yeah.
Okay. So like the hardy backer is the thinnest.
Yeah.
So you do a hardy backer, trace the.
Yeah.
We actually have a lot of projects with 1/4 inch, even that thin. Of a backer board.
Yeah, that's the hardy. The hardy
Right.
is
Right.
1/4 inch.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I'm actually going to share that with the tile guy because he wants to do a mortar bed, and my fear is that it's going to offset the floor heights too much.
I will send you a link to my blog.
Good.
It's a whole thing on
Yes,
that.
please.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's also, I understand the tile people make a lot of their profit on mortar, and so there's an economic aspect. It's also a good way to do it.
Sure.
But doing it with backer board and thin set is done.
Well, look, let's
all
put
the
it this
time.
way. My price is locked, so if I can save him time, he's not changing the price. He still gets paid, and my floor heights are level. Win-win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You know, but no, it's really about it's really a function of floor height between hallway and bathroom, and trying to get that as close as humanly possible, while still doing the install the right way and having the conductivity.
Hoyt gets questions about floor height all the time.
Great.
It's a lot of
I'm going to read that.
remodels.
This is my weekend reading will be Lloyd's blog post.
And with tile, there's lots of different thicknesses of tile. There's different thicknesses of backer board. So usually you can figure out how to match it up.
Cool. Awesome. Gentlemen, I cannot thank you enough for all the time, for making the trip out. I am absolutely thrilled with the install, and really, really, really look forward to turning this on. Guys, hope you enjoyed the deep dive. If you are interested in radiant floors, I could not recommend Ecowarm enough, especially from the install perspective. You're going to see the tests coming as the series comes to a close, and I'm turning the system on, so we will confirm everything we're talking about here today. Links to everything we talked about is in the description down below. If you are in the market for radiant, highly recommend checking these boys out.